Pretty girls. Thank you guys so much for tuning into episode 6 of our podcast. We stream live every Friday at 8 p.m. And if you can't check us live, we are streaming on every platform you can think of by Saturday. So check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all of the other podcast platforms. Tonight's episode is episode 6.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. It's so crazy to think that we are already in episode 6 of the podcast. We have one more week until we take a brief hiatus, and then we will be right back here streaming live. So tonight's episode is going to be about me first.
Yes.
And we're going to just talk about the struggle being real when it comes to self-care. And whoo.
Girl, I'm trying to figure out how to share this in my page. Listen, you real over here. I'm technically immature. Y'all gotta forgive me.
Listen.
You did a good job with the intro, though, girl.
Thanks, girl. I be trying.
Listen, y'all, we be on a wing and a prayer, okay?
Yes.
Jesus.
Yes. Sometimes we don't get our episode topics until here lately the day of. And then we getting it all together. So what you see is what you get out of us. We are very much authentic on this platform. We do not claim to have it all together. Sometimes the struggle be real, and you get to see a bird's eye view of the realness today. And I honestly, it may be a direct result of lack of self-care.
Yes.
It might be the fact that we have not put me first.
Yes.
I just think that for all of us, whether if you're married, if you're single, if you're a professional, if you're a stay-at-home mom, whatever your title, whichever way, of your experience, self-care is hard.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard. It is difficult to do. It is not something that is always in our everyday schedule. I know for me, self-care has been a whole struggle this year. Never mind this week. It's been hard this year.
Yeah. You know what? My perception of self-care has changed.
Yeah.
And I am truly living it as of this week. So, before my form of self-care was travel. And I have not been able to. Well, that's not true. I was able to take one trip this year, but I found myself having what they call it, FOMO.
Yeah, FOMO.
Fear of missing out because I haven't been able to travel,
Yeah.
and not for any bad reasons, but there has been some things locally that required my attention, so I haven't been able to travel. So, and I'm glad about that because I think that because I was grounded. Hey, psych go because I was grounded. It changed my perspective of how I needed to move differently in my life. So I found in the past couple of weeks that an additional form of self-care was having boundaries.
Yeah.
Was having boundaries. And a lot of times when we think of self-care, we think about getting our nails did, getting our hair did, going on this trip. What else? Getting your brows did, getting your eyelashes done, whatever it might be. But of late, because I haven't been able to do all those things, sometimes it's not picking up the phone.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is looking at the text messages, start to type, and you say, no, fam, I ain't typing back. Sometimes it is calling your friend and just having a conversation or sitting outside your house in your car.
Oh, that's a ministry.
Listen, that ministry is a ministry.
Yes.
Oh, God. Yes. So my perspective has really changed. And, you need those self-care moments. They are, Nakai talked about the professional, the mother, the auntie, whoever you is. You need your self-care. A lot of times they say the colloquial. Did I say that right?
Colloquial.
Yes. You can't pour out if you don't pour into yourself. And that's so true. That is so true. And I would say in this season, God has really showed me some things that I need to do just to make sure that I'm not overwhelmed, exhausted, that I'm clear, that I can hear him, because if you continue to run and try to move forth in the things that you're moving in, you're not going to be successful. At some point, you're going to burn out.
Yeah, I think that we got to stay. One of my favorite things is stay there. Let's stay there for a second.
Yeah.
And it's because one of the struggles of self care is that we've developed this idea that we put ourselves last,
Mhm.
and let's dispel it now about why that is not okay. It's not okay because if you don't put yourself first, you find yourself burning out even the more.
Yeah.
You find yourself ill-equipped for anything that you're responsible
Yeah.
for in your day to day and in your moment to moment because you have not taken that time of you first.
Yeah.
So what it looks like is, a battery that's already half full because you haven't poured into yourself. And now you're using what little battery you have left to pour out on everyone else. And at the end of the day, you're snapping.
Yeah.
You're angry,
Yeah.
you're resentful because you've given all that you have of yourself for someone else,
Yeah.
but you haven't taken that time for yourself. It looks like you not even being your best self for the people that need you most
Yeah.
because you haven't taken that time to really, pour into you. I was reading something one day and it just really stuck with me. And it says self-care, and shout out to Nikki on TikTok. She says it all the time too. She says self-care is filling up the cup you pour from.
Yeah.
And I think that is literally spot on, a great definition. It's filling up the cup you pour from.
Mhm.
And not even, sometimes we, like you talked about, we will label self-care as getting your nails done, getting
Mhm.
your hair done, eyelashes, makeup, and all those things are great.
Yeah.
I'm for every single one of them.
Shopping.
Shopping, Lord Jesus. I'm for all of those things. I'm very much whatever works best. That's not an illicit substance or an addiction or any of those things. Do it. However, sometimes for the person who was running on empty, all of those things seems like another chore, another task, another thing on the list to do. And you might be in a place where you're so depleted that you don't even have the patience, time, or energy to do anything of that.
Yeah.
And I think that let's dispel self-care, meaning that we always have to spend money.
Or we gotta do something.
Yeah. Yeah. Self-care
Doing
stems
enough.
beyond the tangible, the materials, all of the things, dinners and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And don't get me wrong, I love all of that. I am very much a girly girl and I'm here for every single thing on the
Yeah.
list. But sometimes the depletion will have you in a place where you don't even have the energy to think about those things, let
Yes.
alone book the appointment, get a shower, get your car, get in the drive, getting gas, getting your Starbucks if that's your thing, to even get to those destinations. So I think we should dispel the fact that self-care always means you have to do something in order to feel better. That's not always the case.
Yeah. It's just being busy all the time. We live in
Yeah.
a society where we busy, 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 busy. My sister over here was just asking me, was I gonna do this thing next weekend? And I was like, no, I don't think I want to do it because I just want to have a weekend where I don't have to do anything, where I don't have to think about anything. And what's interesting though? Even when we look at busying ourselves and that being the opposite of self-care, I don't know about y'all or you, but if you have felt guilty about not doing something, that was good. A lot of and that's what we had to think about. You could fill up your entire schedule with good things, but you're really just busying yourself. And we have to, like, I don't know if y'all like me, but sometimes I struggle just to stay in the bed. Like, I'm like, okay, well, if I have this extra time, I do some more laundry. You always fill it up with some space, and we never take the time to just sit there.
Yeah.
And how about let's promote the idea that self-care sometimes is doing absolutely nothing.
Yes.
Just sitting in stillness and sitting in quiet. And I'm talking to myself, y'all, because
Yeah.
when I tell you I struggle with this, because I'm telling you, if I'm not doing something, I feel like I'm not progressing forward. And sometimes self-care is rest. So self-care is stillness. Yeah, I'm gonna put
I
it
feel
there.
like that's hard because you coming for me right now. I don't know if I like it, but I feel like that's hard because if you operate in any of the capacities that we talked about earlier, that motherhood, professional, entrepreneur, business owner, any or all of the above. Some of us, especially in this room, wear several hats.
Yeah.
Student, any of those things. Doing nothing is almost like a curse
Yeah.
word because you're so busy, trying to plan the next move. Ooh, it happens, y'all. It happens. I knew it was gonna happen. But we sit in we sit and plan every moment of our lives, right? So, if you have all of these hats, you find yourself, I gotta keep going, I gotta keep moving in the business, I gotta keep being productive, I gotta get to the $1 million mark, I gotta post, I got content. Even for PGBH, is I gotta post, we gotta come up with this, we gotta come up with that. And so many of our other endeavors that we are doing individually, it requires a lot of our time on top of our professions, on top of our educational endeavors, on top of motherhood, on top of trying to date, on top of being married, all of those things, that we think that doing nothing is us being lazy, us not getting the job done, and almost failure. Somehow, because we've grown to be so busy, we equate rest and stillness to be laziness, counterproductivity, all of those things, when really the body needs to rest and reset. We would do our best work and our brains would function at the capacity that we need them to. And we would take that 30 minutes, that hour, or even just that day to rest, recover, and recoup. But somehow, we've taken being busy as adding a value or a meaning to our life when it's okay to rest.
Yeah, I would say two things. The first thing I would say is you mentioned dating. And the only reason why I'm mentioning this is because I've experienced this in the past couple of weeks. Listen, y'all, a form of self care is not letting nobody waste your time.
Come on.
I'm talking about in a phone call, in a text message. Literally, I was talking to my leader, my spiritual mother, and she was talking about how everything is a transaction, right? And if you look at it like a bank and you withdrawing money, every time that you have a conversation with a time waster, and actually we can even go outside the realm of dating. If it's just anyone in your life who is wasting your time, they are taking money out of that account and they ain't making no deposit. So, even when I look at self-care and self-care includes your mental health, and if you have somebody who is wasting your time, then they wasting your energy when you could be doing something else. You could just be doing nothing at that point, know. So again, just changing the perspective of what self-care looks like, because we talk about caring for ourselves, but remember that care is it should be holistic. It should be mental, it should be spiritually, and it should be physically as well. But I'm really touching all those aspects, because now that I think about it, society tricked us. Because when we think about the physical aspect of it, it really just requires us to spend money.
Yeah, big time.
Right? It really,
Big time.
just because, of late, and this is the second thing I wanted to say, of late, God has really been bringing me back to stuff that I love. And I think that we have got into this realm of being so busy that we don't even know what we like anymore.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I was about to travel to a facility today with somebody on my team, and they were driving, so I pulled out my book. And I keep my books in my book bag, just in case I have a few minutes to read, because I used to love reading when I was a child.
Yes.
And now as an adult, um, I'm always like, I don't got enough time. I don't got enough time. I don't got enough time. But now I read. So as I was talking to him, he was like, "Oh, you really like to read?" Because I'm telling you, on my breaks, I will read. And I said, "Yeah, I do." So he said, "You know what? I used to like to read too." And when he told me the last time he read was in high school.
Oof.
So just imagine,
Wow.
a grown adult. I think he's in his probably mid-40s, and since high school has not read a book leisurely because of being busy.
Yeah.
And I'm not accosting anybody. I'm not condemning anyone, because I know that life gets busy. I know that it gets difficult to find the space and time to do things. But I would challenge you all too to really dig deep into what you actually like to do.
Yeah.
Because I think when it comes to just how we live our lives, we kind of make up stuff to fit things that we really shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
So really say, do I actually like to do this for my self care? So I wanted to bring that up because reading has been one of the things that has been one of my self care
Yeah,
activities.
I agree 100%. It even makes me consider, creativity being a form of self care, like
Yeah,
letting your brain come away from the things that you have to do
yeah,
to really moving to the things you love to
yeah,
do.
yeah,
And I think that I miss that part of me.
yeah,
There are a lot of businesses that I've let go,
yeah, yeah,
because of the demands that my profession, the demands as a mother, the demands as a wife, the demands as, all of the different hats that I wear, a lot of my creative juices, if you will,
yeah,
I've let deplete because I don't invest the time into that, which brings me to another thought that, self-care could also look like using your time as currency.
yeah,
We give a lot of our time, like you said, to so many things, to so many people, to so many constructs, that if we thought about time in the same way that we thought about currency, we would
that's
do
good.
we would do more with our time, with the things that we love,
Yeah,
just as much as we do it with the things that we have to do. When
yeah,
I think about, like, if y'all know me 10 years or more, I had a pretty lucrative makeup business that I don't do anymore.
yeah.
I can tell you just by looking at your skin, what your skincare needs are.
She hooked me up, y'all.
Shout out to Complex Skin and the Colorful Experiences,
Yes,
two businesses that I've let go,
yeah,
in a sense, just because of so many requirements, so much that I'm required to do, that, people will recognize that gift in me before I even say anything.
yeah,
And it's like, oh yeah, I do like that. Like, that is one of my passions. It is something that I'm interested in, but I've let all of my demands, just everything that we're required to do, take the place of that creativity. And the creative place is where you thrive best.
yeah,
It's where, all everything that you really are innately comes to life. Like, it
yeah,
comes to life either in a business or just leisure or something you like to do craft wise in your spare time, in your hobbies. That's really where, you thrive best, outside of your jobs and professions, because we thrive well there. But if you think about the things that you're very creative in, the things that you would do for free,
yeah.
the things that you would do without a
That you're
paycheck,
passionate about.
that you're truly passionate about,
Mhm.
that could look like self-care too.
Yeah,
And if it turned into a business, great. But if you're only doing it for the purposes of self-care, that's okay too.
yeah. As you were talking, what I thought about is that's the reason why I left my corporate job. You know how something is wrong, like something is literally
Mm.
wrong in the pit of your stomach and you can't place it. And what you said about creativity perfectly described the feeling that I was feeling because my role was so monotonous.
Mhm.
It was so monotonous. For the most part, you do the same thing every day. There's a guise of some realm of autonomy, but really you're doing the same thing every day.
Mhm.
And I remember I just was like, what is the purpose of this? Why am I doing this? And really, it was because I couldn't be creative. And I remember when I started to venture into the realm of starting my businesses, and it was just like this spark inside of me. And it's just fun. Like that part of it, it just stays fun. I don't
Yeah.
think that it'll ever not be in fun because being creative is just like you're birthing something.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see that there's something that's birthed. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is when you talked about time. I was literally watching a reel before we got on live, and it was talking about like and I don't know if this is backed up, so don't quote me, but it was talking about the average lifespan of a human being is 75 years.
Mm.
And it was really breaking down like 75 autumns, 75 springs, 75,
Oof.
just and when you think about 75, and in that sense, it's just like, wow, we don't have much time on this earth. And even as we talk about busyness, and as my sister was talking about doing things that we love, that's why it's so important that you come in and go to two of them, because we don't have much time on this earth. And it's not, you know, to be a Debbie Downer, but it's just the truth. We don't have time, so we certainly don't want to waste that time.
That hit me like a ton of bricks. Like a ton of bricks. Because literally it creates discussion even the more for the different ways of self-care, because self-care isn't always the massage. It isn't always, those things are great. I ain't listen.
But you gotta get up
However,
and go to the massage.
listen, even if they come to you, your house got to be right.
Your
Like
house gotta be clean. Now
yes.
you gotta clean the house.
Yeah,
Then you put all types of
vacuuming.
work
I
on
mean,
yourself.
granted,
Yeah.
we not saying our houses is dirty, nothing like that. But we got kids, we got
Yes.
pets. Stuff ain't always in
You
its
gotta put the
place. Is the
dogs up.
point?
You might get the
Nothing's
dogs in there.
look, nothing ever dirty, but it might be some things out of place. You might
Yes.
walk in and it be crayons on the floor and building blocks. I got little kids, so it's not that. But like, you just think about all of the things you have to do to get ready for those things, and if self-care could look like spending that time to do what you really love.
Yeah. Like, what I really love these days is just curled up under a blanket and watching a movie.
Some popcorn.
Yes. And just chilling. Like, my things that I love this time is just chilling. Like, we were even talking about like pulling up to each other's houses with some snacks and chilling and watching, because
and we used to do that.
Yeah, because get all them kids together. Even get all them kids together, keeping track of them, keeping them happy, because you know the kids, you take them out, but they, mommy, I want,
especially my teenagers.
It's work.
Can we go to Sephora?
Yes.
It even brings me to the next point, and I'm coming for me, you, and everybody that's watching or listening. Self-care should not be a reward for accomplishments. It shouldn't be. And I'm even talking to me, because if you remember a conversation that we had off topic that I can't reveal here just yet, but if you remember the conversation, and I said, well, I already did this, but I haven't celebrated.
Yeah.
And this is about to happen, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to celebrate this. I began to do the introspection about how I really wanted to celebrate these accomplishments.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, oh, I really want to do this one thing, but I'll do it when I get the result of the thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I literally had to check myself in this episode, or even preparing for this episode, because I'm doing the thing that I'm telling you guys not to do.
Yeah.
So I did the thing. I did when this happens, I will do this. Even, we talked several weeks ago about the licensure process for me. And I said to myself, I'm a grind this 6 weeks out of full-fledged studying so I can pass this exam and be, a higher level in my profession. And I said, and when those 6 weeks is over, then I'll sleep. When these 6 weeks is over, then I'll go out to eat. When the 6 weeks is over, then I'll. So, we put these goals before ourselves, but are they really goals? Because we're subtracting the things that we need in the process and creating them as a reward or a result of producing a thing. It's insanity if you really think about it.
Yeah.
We tell ourselves, when I lose 40 pounds, I'll buy the dress. Just buy the dress, sis.
Yeah.
Especially when Kawana just sat here and told us we only got 75 springs, 75 winners. Like, buy the dress. Like, just do it. We'll figure out the rest. We'll get the shapewear. It'll be all right. Just, just buy the dress.
Yeah.
Like, just do it. When you think, I even, like I said, I'm coming for myself just as well as I'm talking to you guys, is that I put constructs around when it's okay to have the reward, quote unquote, when it's okay to give myself something that makes me feel good. But what if I just celebrated right now?
Yeah. And celebrate the wins along the way.
Yeah.
To get to the big win. We talked about this.
Yeah.
One of the conversations that we had, but what if you celebrate that? Because I think we set ourselves up for disappointment. And it's not that it's not that we shouldn't get to the end result, but think about the work that takes place to the end result. Like, for example, and I'll share this. I'm studying for an exam, and I remember when I told my apostle that I was studying for it, and the one thing that he said to me was, "It's not about you passing the exam; it's about the process."
Yeah.
And when I think about the process has equipped me to be more disciplined, to retain more knowledge, to pray more, like all these things. But why not celebrate those things? Even though my desire is to pass the test, but what about all these good fruits that came out of that process? And I think that's important when we think about our self-care. And I mean, she just came from my jugular, y'all.
I came from my own.
Let me tell y'all. Let me tell y'all, because I was just right before we got on the podcast, I was like, "Oh, I want to schedule a photo shoot, but I want to lose a little pounds first before I schedule the photo shoot." But it's like, why not just schedule the photo shoot? And not to say that it's wrong to set milestones so that you can have something to look forward to. However, as she was stating, sometimes some of those things is something we need.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and we literally it's literally like when she was talking about it, it's literally like saying, I'm not going to give myself some water until I accomplish XYZ. Like we need quiet time. We need
Right.
to love on ourselves. So why have it just completely predicated around producing results?
Yeah, like we look at the things that we truly need in that moment
Mhm.
as a reward system.
Yeah.
Like we have to earn it. And don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, like you said, there are times where you set goals and you discipline yourself for the greater goal. Like there, and that's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. However, to your point, you withhold water when you're already dehydrated. You withhold
Now you just out here
nourishment.
thirsty.
Yeah, you withhold food when you know you need the nourishment, when you're already hungry. Like you tell yourself, oh well, I'm doing this and this, so I won't eat until I finish reading this chapter.
Yeah.
For our students, or for
Not eating.
right, or consider the
Well, I
mothers.
did that today.
Listen, consider if you're a mom or an
Oh my
auntie,
gosh.
grandma, you'll say, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna eat the meal when the kids go to sleep,"
Yeah.
as if there's a reward for that. Like
Yes.
it should not ever. What we need should never be tied to an accomplishment, a requirement, none of that, because we deplete ourselves.
Yeah.
That's literally taking mounds and mounds out of the cup that's already half full to begin with, because
Yeah.
we don't take the time for self. And to the point what we talked about earlier, self-care is not selfish.
Yeah.
It's not selfish to want to water you. We just had a whole conference. Shout out to Apostle Maisha and the HOG fam,
Yes.
because we literally just had a great women's conference on watering you and what watering you looks like. And you literally have to water you before you can ever pour out for someone else. Because what that, if we do the opposite, what that looks like is, if you can picture a pitcher of water that has holes in it, and I'm filling it up so I can pour out, but it's before I can even really get the water to the top of the pitcher, it's already half full, because it's leaking everywhere.
Mhm.
And that's what that looks like. It looks like when we're not taking the steps to truly nourish us,
Yeah.
to truly to make sure our elbows is moisturized.
Yeah.
Like we legit, we operate in a deficit, and we're unproductive,
Yeah.
we're unfruitful, we're not operating in our best selves, running on half or running on E or even beyond E. At some point, even a car, when it runs out of gas, begins to burn oil,
Yeah.
trying to keep up. Like we can't continue to burn every bit of energy that we have left, because that leads to burnout. And burnout is much harder to recuperate from if we would just take the time for us. And I don't mean take 3 years. I mean, if you need it, take it. But if you take the time for yourself daily, we'll have need for less opportunities to retreat. So we won't need that 2-week vacation from everyone. Now, I ain't saying don't go on vacation, but what I'm saying is we won't always, every quarter or every season of the year, we need 2 weeks if we do it daily. Sometimes my self-care is waking up before the kids, taking a nice hot shower and lathering my body in my favorite body butter, and just taking time for myself in that way, with a warm cup of tea or cold coffee. It must be cold. But that's my self-care time. And I never leave the house. It doesn't necessarily cost me anything, but it's the time where I take that moment to breathe before I hear babe, mom, meow. We got cats at home. Any
Not
of
the
those
meow.
things, boss, in any of those things. Before I ever hear a title or a request from me, I make sure that I'm well prepared mentally, spiritually, and physically to get through the day. And I think we miss that.
Yeah.
Consider, I'm gonna paint the picture real fast and then I'm gonna shut up. Picture waking up to an alarm.
Mhm.
We 15 minutes behind schedule. You barely get time to lotion you with your ashy self. I'm painting a picture.
I be asking you all the
I'm,
time,
I'm
sis.
painting a picture because now you're mad that you didn't take the time to lotion. Your skin is uncomfortable. You haven't had your favorite water, tea, cup of coffee, croissant in the morning. You grabbing your bag. You got to pack the kids' lunch. The kids can't find their socks or shoes. The cat and the dog want food. The car ain't got no gas. All of these things we have to now juggle, and we haven't taken our time for ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, those same things can happen, and we've taken that time for ourselves. We're much more level head, and we have a better plan put in place because we've taken the time to woosah before the day begins. It's so important. And like I say, each day is different, is going to be different. But I don't care if it's 5 minutes. Take the time. Put you first. Make sure that you are well equipped for anything that could come your way if you just take the time to pour into you first.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that, going back to probably in the same vein that you were speaking of, self care is letting some things go.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to explore that a little bit. Sometimes self care is you do them dishes in the morning.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yes.
self care is you allow the children to play because they're children and they want to play instead of trying to keep an area clean all the time. Let me tell you, I had to be delivered from this.
Yeah.
Because my children, if they playing, they will tear my house up, y'all. And I remember I would drive myself crazy, like trying to keep everything in the same spot while they were playing, which made absolutely no sense. And then then we bring my two dogs into the mix. And literally, I was on the phone with her today. I'm trying to clean up. And every time I cleaned up something, a dog would go around and
Oh,
move
you heard
it.
what Soraya?
Yes. And move the things out of place. But sometimes, it's letting go. It's letting go of some things that you plan to do for that day.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the realm of busyness, we have our to-do list. And sometimes to-do lists are not good because we really it's just another metric that we formulate, and if we don't meet everything on that metric, then we feel like a failure. And we need to get into the habit of just prioritizing what's extremely important, and then what are some things that we can roll over to the next day or the next few days. And then I would say letting go is also letting go of old mindsets. It might be you that is contributing to your lack of self-care.
Yeah, the expectations.
Yeah. Letting go is letting go of people who are not good for you. There are many of you out there who are associated with friends, boyfriends. It even could be a spouse who y'all don't get no divorce unless the Lord tell y'all so. Okay, yeah. But there's people that you're associated with that are completely toxic for you mentally, spiritually, some even physically. So you want to make sure that you let go, that you find the strength to let go of those things. It might even be letting go some things that you eat. Some people, you might not be able to have certain things, and that makes your body sluggish. For me, now that I've taken certain things out of my diet, I don't experience like migraines anymore and things like that. So, or it might be doing more things. Your self care might look like drinking some water. Some of y'all thirsty, y'all dehydrated, and that's your problem. But yeah, it might just be drinking water. Like literally, one of the goals that I have set for these past few weeks is getting my recommended amount of water in. My point is, it don't have to be deep. It really don't have to be this astronomical or we going to the spa and stuff like that. Because guess what? You still gotta get ready for the spa. And y'all know, you going to the spa, you gotta be cute. So you gotta put some the effortless effort.
Yes.
to go. So, again, when we think about these things that we have the perspective of that it is self-care, it really take work to self care yourself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I'm gonna say something that's probably gonna be a cuss word for many of us, either working, not working, professional, stay at home mom. It goes for everybody. Take the PTO.
Listen.
Take it. I don't care what's going on at work. I don't care what the deadlines are. Now, don't get in trouble. Don't get written up a fire because I said this, because don't come back. I ain't got no money for you. But however, take the PTO, because I read this somewhere on social media, but they will post your job before they post your death notice.
Yeah.
Take the PTO. Some of us that are working, I'm in administration, so I understand the leadership challenges, or maybe it ain't even got to be leadership, just the whatever your position entails. It's always work to it, leadership or not. Take the PTO. Never let yourself get so stressed out about making a living that you can't enjoy the living that you're trying to make. Like, don't get so caught up and focused in making a life that you don't enjoy the life that you're building. Take the PTO. Sometimes you just need those mental health days where you just take the time for you. You send the kids to school if you're a mother, you put your phone on do not disturb, and you just enjoy the fact that you have nothing to do that day. And I think that's another reward system we've given ourselves. Like, oh, we go on vacation once a year. Who told you that?
Yeah.
Like, who told you that?
I'm trying to go every month.
Right. Just consider, after 52 weeks of hard working in a year, you give yourself 1 week.
Yeah.
Who told you that?
That's pretty sad.
This is what we've labeled and identified as self-care.
Yeah.
Who told you that? Now, if you got, I'm not talking to those that might be working towards a goal or having financial hardships and you have to work. I'm not, that ain't that. I'm talking about take the day. We accrue PTO for a reason. It's funny because at work right now, I'm talking to my staff about rollover, because some of them have such PTO, so high amounts of PTO, because they never want to take time. Now, in our supervision meetings, I'm always the first, and any of my staff will tell you, the first thing I ask for is, how are you practicing self-care? Because the field that I work in is a very high stress environment. So the first thing that I'm asking is, what are you doing for self-care? And many of them roll their eyes. They get on my nerves. Oh, Nakai, don't start with that today. I get all types of eye rolls, and it's okay. But I would be remiss as a boss, as a person, as a human, to not ask you how you're doing first before I ask you anything else. Yeah. So I always start off with, what are you doing for self-care? And so back to the rollover of time, one of my staff has like 200 and something hours. And I'm like, ma'am, wow, what part of vacation don't you understand? And it's not that she can't take the vacation. She refuses because she has gotten gratification, and her idea of happiness has become satisfying other people, and that attributing to her level of happiness, that taking the break honestly scares her, because she's like, well, what am I? The very first thing she said to me when I talked to her about using the vacation and not rolling it over, she said, well, what am I going to do? Legit, like it, with tears in her eyes, she said, I don't know what I would do with myself. Wow. But we can't get to that point. Yeah. We can't get to the point where we equate happiness to making somebody else happy. We can't get that dopamine rush because we've helped others. And while that's fine, it's not enough. Yeah. You take the PTO. I don't care if it's one long weekend a month, however you decide to schedule it, for yourself, make sure you're taking that time, because guess what? Your CEO took the time. The owner of the company, he's in Malibu while you working. I'm sure. Yes. So and not even to be funny, but it's the truth. Like, take the time. Listen. You will come back so refreshed, revived, and able to truly give them your best self about your projects or whatever your tasks are if you take the time.
Listen, you know what else I want to say too? This is why I don't go on group trips no more, y'all. Because when I go on vacation, I need to relax. I want to sit on the beach with my orange juice, whatever juice it is, and my book. And I want to lay in the sun. I want to do nothing. And I remember I went on a couple of trips, and it literally, I was tired from taking the trip. Like, the vacation was not a vacation. I needed a vacation from said vacation. So that's the other thing that you want to think about as well when you frame these trips. Like Nakia said, you could do some small trips. You might not have the money to fly somewhere. You could drive, a couple hours away and, look at a mountain. I don't know. But it doesn't have to be something that is expensive. But I was chuckling to myself when you were talking about PTO balances, because in my former employer, literally a badge of honor was having an abundance of hours.
Oh my gosh.
Which is crazy to think about. But I had someone who, one of my former coworkers, who broke out of that ideal, And I'm talking about this dude would take a cruise. I swear he was on a cruise every month. And I was like, you know what?
I ain't mad at him.
I ain't mad at it.
I ain't mad.
And he was just as refreshed
Mm-hmm.
when he came back, enjoying himself. So yeah, take that time and listen. You talking to me because I'm
Listen,
telling you,
I ain't gonna
it.
tell you what my PTO balance is because she should have been talking to me.
See,
Like,
see, but yeah, this is definitely talking to me because it's like even today, and this is the flip side of what I was talking about, but this is also helpful as well. I have been so busy in my life that I haven't been able to take the time and sit and organize. And when I tell you today, I was organizing, and that literally was my like I had joy in it because I was clearing out my space. It was so much space, going back to the concept of letting go. It was so many things in my space that didn't even need to be in my space.
mm-hmm.
And it just felt so fresh. It felt so new. And a lot of times when we think about self-care, it's cleaning out the clutter. And
Mm-hmm.
that might be literally physically clutter. So on the flip side of that, it's letting some things go, but on the other side of that is actually cleaning up the clutter. But really, it's being able to decipher when you should do so and when you should not do so, and just find that balance. Just find that balance, and I think balance is also an important aspect of self care as well because I think as we journey through our lives, and no matter what aspect you're in, you don't even necessarily need to be a mother. If you're a professional, if you are wife, single, with children, is that daily balancing act. And a lot of times we can go to the two different extremes. And I know I'm finding my balance of things in life, but it's just finding that balance. If you work, like for me, I just to make sure that that I am being productive on the goals that I've set forth. I might have 4 hours of productive time, and then I stole the idea from my kids' school, but they call them brain breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll have brain breaks, so really just this time to breathe. So your day might look like I'm going to power through this work for 4 hours and then I'm gonna take a walk real quick. Or I'm gonna read for a half an hour, or I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
go and pray, or I'm gonna go and worship, listen to my worship, whatever it is. But your time might look like just taking those breaks in the day. Because if you are a mom, if you are in a very hectic or high paced career, then you might find it difficult to get those spaces in. But let me tell you, if you do find that balance, you will be able to find room for those breaks.
Yeah, I call them brain dumps. I will, throughout the day take moments and I tell my staff I'm going on a brain dump.
Yeah,
And a brain dump looks different for everybody, but for me it's just complete silence.
yeah,
So that everything that's in my head can kind of just like mellow out.
yeah,
I'm constantly thinking of different things, and different things are always going through my mind, either through my own personal business or work related issues, or what I'm gonna do when I get out of work, or what's left on my task list to get done, that sometimes it will cause hyperstimulation.
yeah,
I would be so hyper focused on all that I need to do that I begin to feel it in my body. My body tenses because now I'm anxious, or that, like I said, I'm overstimulated about all of the things that I need to do, that I will take those times throughout the day just to brain dump.
yeah,
And sometimes I write it out because if I write, it's my way of getting it out of my brain. So I'll write it out, I'll think it out. Sometimes the silence just help me collect the thoughts and come up with a plan on how to execute each of those areas. But it's definitely important to brain dump so that you avoid that, because what happens is when you don't have those moments of brain dumping or brain breaks, or just that those pauses throughout your day, you're at increased risk for anxiety,
yeah. Depression.
overstimulating, depression,
Mhm.
and even with it's called analysis paralysis.
Oh yeah.
I'm a conduit.
Hmm.
I'm talking to me right now.
Yeah.
When you become so focused on all that you need to do,
You
now
don't
you
do,
can't
do,
do
do nothing.
nothing. Now you stuck like Chuck. because you can't do nothing.
Girl.
And it's literally analysis paralysis, where you have talked yourself into a mental block where you can't even physically move on the things that you want to do because you have taken all of the brain marbles you had left for the day and you have overthought so much that now you're stuck. Now you can't do nothing. Now you don't want to do nothing. You just want to lay in the bed because now your head hurt.
Yeah.
And all of the physical manifestations of what's going on mentally are now physical. Now things are hurting, you're aching, you're tired,
Yeah.
all of those things because you've overanalyzed, overthought it,
Yeah.
and didn't give yourself that time to process. Because what happens is the thoughts come to the forefront of your brain. And then here comes another and then another and another. If you think about the front of your brain, all across here is probably all these different things that you thought about, but you didn't give your brain a chance to process them.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to pause right there and just talk about the brain, right? Because I think a lot of times people don't give your mental space and your mental activity enough credit. And if you think about somebody who has, let's say, a UPS, USPS, somebody who has a job that's really physical because they're constantly carrying packages, and somebody who is an office worker, a lot of times somebody will see the UPS or mail carrier as having a more difficult job than an office worker, right? But just think about just our mental capacity and us processing thoughts and processing the things that we have to do. And people can literally be mentally exhausted.
Mhm.
And when you think about that frame of thinking, Nakaya talks about depression, anxiety, analysis paralysis. Just think about your brain. Your body cannot function without what your body can't function without your brain.
Yeah.
So if your brain goes, then everything else follows.
Mhm.
And then consider that if you are overwhelmed, and if you're mentally overwhelmed, you take in those things as you go to sleep as well. So now you're dreaming about those things. So now even in your sleep, you can't find rest because you're exhausted. And
Yeah.
there is a such thing as mental exhaustion. So I even want to dispel the thing that if you have a job where you had to think, then you're not really working, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not true.
Yeah.
And you could eat your mental exhaustion could easily manifest into physical exhaustion,
Yeah.
aches and pains in the body, like Nakaya talked about. And just being mindful of that, like, it's so important. It's so important. Even over the past few weeks, I'm like, why am I so tired?
Mhm.
And it's really just letting go, going back to letting go of some of the things that I think I need to think about, that I really don't need to be thinking about right now. And just resting in, well, for me, is resting in God, and how he's going to work it out. But don't negate the exhaustion that just can come from thinking, just
Yeah.
simply thinking.
Yeah, just consider if somebody that goes to the gym or an athlete trains for several days on end and gives him or herself a rest day.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that mentally?
Yeah.
Why can't we, why is that such a faux pas idea
Yeah.
that if a gymnast, an athlete, a runner can train the body to do what it needs to do in whatever capacity,
Yeah.
why can't, and then rest?
Yeah.
Why can't we do that mentally where we use our brains for, whatever we need them for, and then just rest it
Mhm.
and just rest?
Yeah.
We know I think that we have to start to think about those things because, like we talked about a few minutes ago, if we don't, here comes all of these physical manifestations. We wonder why, we have colds.
Yeah.
It ain't always flu season. Sometimes you haven't rested enough.
Yep.
So, sometimes you haven't taken those necessary breaks. And now your body, the body keeps the score. The body keeps a record of all of the things, even when we tell our minds that it ain't really happening. The
Mhm.
body knows and it keeps record of that. So while we think we've pushed it to the back of our brains, we're gonna just keep trucking and keep moving.
Yeah.
Now here comes the sniffles, then your throat hurt, now
Yep.
your back hurt,
Mhm.
now you're achy, Tylenol isn't working, all of those things because we don't take the time to just let the brain rest.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, my self-care journey, like really digging into my self-care journey, started last year when I left my former employer. And I didn't leave at first. I went on a medical leave, and to be frank with y'all, it was for anxiety and depression because I was so burnt out that I just couldn't do it.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, um, I probably needed to do it sooner, but I did not. And it got to the point where I was forced to do so. And I love that. I love that it happened to me because I can tell you all that self care looks like sometimes leaving a job that you're in, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm not saying for anybody to leave prematurely, but if it is harming, if it is harming you as a person, then you can't be good for nobody.
Yeah.
And I remember as I was making my exit out, and my blood pressure, I'm talking about, was stroke level. And my doctor told me, if you don't exit, then do you want to be here for your kids? And I remember that just, it shook me.
Mhm. Mhm.
It really, really shook me. And that is when I decided to make my exit. But even as I fully exited out, you know, I ain't telling y'all it's gonna be easy because, you know, a lot of times we get comfortable, you know, especially when it comes to a job, getting a steady paycheck and all those things. But we have to check our mental spaces. And as you know, in that time space, I remember I couldn't even be productive. I literally, I wasn't clear. I couldn't make, not to say I couldn't make reasonable decisions, but it just was no clarity.
Yeah.
And if you don't have clarity, then it's difficult to process things, to move forward. So some for a lot of people, it's a step, a necessary step to preserve self.
Yeah, yeah, I've been through that. You took me back a couple years because we talked about what happens when you don't prioritize self care, and here's what happens. For me, my story was I told my brain and my body that irregardless of what was going on, we had to press through.
Yeah.
At that
Ooh,
time, I
Jesus.
was a director at a detox facility. I was a full time student getting my master's. I had 2 children. I was starting a business. I was a wife. I was doing all of those things and never taking that break. Never taking that self-care break. And let me be the first to say from experience that if you don't take it, your body's going to force you into it. Because I found myself in and out of the ER almost, can I be honest, almost every other week. Sometimes it was weekly because my heart wouldn't stop racing. I went into full-blown panic attacks. I had anxiety to the point where they were like, listen, if you don't go to therapy or if you don't do something, you're going to run yourself like manic.
Yeah.
You cannot continue to thrive that way.
Yeah.
My doctor tried to take me out of work and I told her I wouldn't do it. I didn't. She wrote the letter. I never gave it to my job because I was so focused on being a professional,
Yeah.
having it all together, you know, but never considering how I truly felt about the job. To be honest, I didn't like it, but it was the idea of I'm successful.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about what I do. I'm a helper in nature. All of those things that I literally told myself I didn't need the breaks and I could just plow through. What happened almost, if it wasn't every other week, it was every week. I was in the ER to the point where the doctor was like, you back again. Because I couldn't get my heart rate out of the 130s. I couldn't get my body to rest because I would go into full-fledged panic attacks. It got to the point where when I finally did go to my primary and showed her all the discharge paperwork from the hospital, she wanted to give me anti-anxiety medication. And that was my wake-up moment.
Yeah.
I am not about to take meds. And this is no diss to anybody that needs them.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about what transpired with me. That was my wake-up call.
Yeah.
Having a prescription for Ativan was not a part of my journey.
Yeah.
Having to take a pill for my body to relax every day was my eye opener. It was either you do it, you find ways to self-care now, or you're going to be on this medication to regulate your heart and regulate the panic that you're experiencing because you won't take the time for you.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was a badge of honor to say that I was so busy. When really on the inside, it was killing me. My heart literally could not take the pressure that I was giving it.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't wait until you get to those moments where your body is starting to respond to everything that all the weight that you put on it. Take the time now to avoid those things, because literally what that looked like for me was coming off the job. And I cried for weeks because I didn't want to do it. When in hindsight, it was a blessing.
Girl.
I walked off that joint like peace because literally, because I remember the first couple days of being out of the job, the anxiety instantly stopped. Instantly. I hadn't had a full night's sleep in 2 years. Waking up full blown gasping for air because I was having a panic attack. Going to the ER 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. My husband having to call out of work because I could not get it together.
Yeah.
The first 3 days after leaving the job, not a heart rate over 100. My body completely, the shakes were gone. My mental clarity was top tier. I didn't know that I needed that break until I was broken, literally.
Yeah. It reminds me of when I left, and it was just like that, and not that everything was just miraculously better once I left, but there was so much relief.
Yeah,
Oh
girl.
my
So weight off
goodness.
my shoulders.
It was so much weight taken off. But I also just really quickly wanted to talk about some things you said. And we've explored these topics in our past episodes, and if you haven't watched them, just make sure you can catch them here on Facebook. You catch them on Spotify, Apple Music, pretty much all the platforms
Everywhere
that have audio podcasts. But I want to talk about some of the other forms of self-care, and you talked about them. You talked about taking the mask off. We explored authenticity, our road to authenticity in a previous episode, but sometimes self-care looks like taking the mask off and just being you. Because it's exhausting to be another version of yourself.
Yeah.
Another form of self-care is redefining your perception of what success looks like.
Yes.
Because if you are constantly looking to obtain a metric, like even now, I fight that perception, because that's really what the world wants us to produce, right? Stop having your idea of success is meeting a metric, because that's really not what's even not what God intends for us. And then it's just really just resting in who you are, and I guess that goes back to authenticity. But no, that's not what I want to say. It is not putting on the appearance that you got it all together, because ain't none of us got it all together.
Yeah.
Not a nair, not one of us. And there might be some things that we power through, or there's some things that we have been brought through, but ain't none of us perfect.
Yeah.
None of us. So even the action of just walking through life as if you have it all together is not. It's the opposite of self-care. It's going to exhaust you. It's going to drain you, and it's not the authentic version of yourself.
Yeah, I think we also want to note that self-care is going to look different in different seasons of your life.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
self-care is not always going to be the rest.
Yeah.
It's not, or reading.
Because I might be on a plane going somewhere.
Listen, book the trip. Take the time.
Yes.
But self-care is going to look different in different seasons. And I say that as a mom of 4 beautiful daughters. However, when I consider the seasons of my life and journeying into a mother of multiples, my self-care looked different. What I was able to do with one child is different from now having twins, so it will evolve. And maybe you're not a mom, maybe you're going from student to professional, or you're going from work to stay at home mom. Whatever your journey is, my point is that your self-care is going to shift and pivot depending upon where you are in the journey. So self-care for you could look like, at one season of your life, putting your feet up, but maybe that's not what works for you. I remember with my oldest daughter, self-care for me was like having mommy weekends away. Well, right now, that's not really self-care for me right now. Like, because there's 4 of them, maybe I can't always, send them all away, but what I can do is have my self-care during that time.
Yeah.
What I can do is, when I do have people that can watch the girls, it's, prioritizing my time to make sure I use it effectively, because you don't know when you're gonna get it again.
Yeah.
It could be, for the student that's going from their bachelor's program to their master's program. Well, what works in your bachelor's program, because maybe you had more time, is not going to work in your master's program, because it's a little bit more rigorous and it requires more of your time. But it doesn't mean that, your self-care takes a hit as a result. It just means you shift from something that might have worked for that season to something that's going to be beneficial for this season. So I think it's important that maybe in your past season, exercising 3 days a week is not, is not going to fit in the schedule for this season, but 1 day a week can. And it doesn't mean that it's less than, it just means that it's shifting depending upon what's required of you in that season.
Yeah.
But the shift does not equate to an absence, so
Or failure.
yes. So you're not going to shift from doing something to doing nothing, because then you're going to operate in that deficit again. However, you're going to shift to make sure that you're still getting those moments of self-care, but you're adjusting the schedule to make sure all of it is accomplished.
Yeah.
But by no means are we saying that you failed because you had to trim it down or even increase it. However, even in those moments where, your life is requiring you to do more, or, wherever it's taking you, self-care needs to come with it. That's just like if you were packing up your luggage to go on a journey. Self-care needs to be on one side of that luggage.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes, the luggage becomes weight.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, luggage becomes weight. So I think that, it's important to understand that wherever you are in your life, wherever endeavors you're pursuing, if it's, however it is, make sure that that on that list there's you. You have to be first on your list. God first, and then find you somewhere. I would prefer it to be at the beginning of the day so that you can operate in your best self. But if it's midday, start somewhere. And self-care isn't perfect. You're not going to always get it right, and you're also not going to always utilize self-care.
Yeah.
But don't take those opportunities as failures. Take them as opportunities to do better next time. But you need that self-care. There's no way that you can operate in a many different capacities that we do without taking that time for yourself. I think we did good. I see a lot of you guys in the comments. So I want to shout you out really fast. We don't always get a chance to do this. But shout out to Tanasia. Shout out to Mignon, Naya, Carolyn. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Tara. Shout out to my apostle watching. Hi, Apostle Mai. Hey, Nicole. How are you? Thank you guys for tuning in. We don't get a chance to do this at all. So I want to do it while we can. Shout out to you guys for taking your time to just watch with us.
Yes.
I want to see in the comments more discussion on how you're operating in self-care. And if you're not utilizing self-care as efficiently as you can, let's talk about how we're going to increase it. Even if it's just a little bit, start somewhere to make sure that you are pouring into you and that you're showing up in your best self. Because it's important. It's so important to make sure that not only are you managing others well, but you're equally managing you well.
Yes.
So we want to love to dialogue with you guys in the comments and keep this conversation going. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 6. We have one more episode until we take a little break, and then we'll be right back with more content.
Should we tell them the title?
That's cliffhanger. Well, maybe we should tell them the title. What should
Yes, we should.
So next week is going to be episode 7, which is our season 1 finale. It's so crazy to say that, but I need you guys right now, since you're on, tag a wife.
Yes.
Tag a wife and tag a soon-to-be wife. Tag someone that desires to be a wife, somebody that's dating, somebody that's just on the journey to figure out their wifehood, because next week's episode is for you. The topic for next week's episode is I did not know how to be a wife. I'm not even ready for it yet, but I did not know how to be a wife. So tag them, let them know. We're going to advertise, share it for us. We would love to explore the journey in wifehood with you. And until then, we thank you guys so much for tuning and listening in. Again, every Friday at 8 p.m., we drop fresh content via the podcast, but we're also on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of those platforms where we post behind the scenes and just daily encouragement. So make sure you're following us there. On Instagram, we're prettygirl_B Hill, and TikTok, we're at prettygirlb. Make sure you're following us, that you're sharing our content. Thank you guys so much for all of your support and your love. It does not go unnoticed, and we really appreciate it. And until next time, we will see you soon. Bye, pretty girls.